Um, I will say this. I think ever since I was young, like over the summer, I would do a couple of like random jobs here or there, whether it was like data entry or like I worked once as a camp counselor. I don't know what else I did. I hated that. Um, I have no idea what else I've done, but I realized early on that having a desk job for me was not what is not how I could function. I felt like I needed people to function. I also needed to have a creative outlet. And so I actually, in high school, applied to a 7 year program, which is a BA MD program, straight shot from high school, with hopes of going into plastic surgery. And that's really what I applied for. I was really lucky. I was a very hardworking like in high school, I was really hardworking. And so I really studied my ass off. There's no way around it. And I got into the 7 year program at GW. So it was a one straight shot where I didn't have to take the MCATs to get into medical school. And I did that because I thought to myself, if I can get in now and secure this for myself now, then at least I know I will get it done and I will have that degree in my back pocket without risking falling off course, because I tend to get a little bit distracted. And so knowing my personality, I could start one way and then kind of veer left. And so I figured if I do it this way, at least I feel like I'm on a path and I would want to accomplish it and say check mark done and at least get my MD. And so that's why the 7 year program for me was very good, because it put me on that path. And at least I always knew that, listen, it's going to be 7 years of my life. I'm just going to get it done and get my medical degree. That being said, it was really hard. The first 3 years of undergrad were great. They were a lot of fun. I mean, I had a blast because I had the security of knowing I had med school in my back pocket and I was accepted. The flip side is I started med school at 20. I was a baby and I didn't even have a fake ID. I wasn't even allowed to drink. I remember after our first set of exams, everybody went out and I was just like, you know what I mean? I was literally a baby. And so I also was so used to having fun for 3 years in undergrad that I didn't realize what it took to study to be in medical school. And so it was it was just like a slap in my face, eye-opening. And I basically buckled down. And my dad said it best to me. He's like, listen, Shireen, you are so young. Consider this prison time, okay? Your friends are all out dancing on the clubs, at the tables, whatever. It doesn't matter. They're going to get jobs. They're not going to get jobs. They're going to go. They're going to come. Who cares? You just do you. And consider this your prison, at least for the next 2 years, because after that, it's not so bad. And I'll tell you guys an analogy in a second. And just suck it up and just do it. And he was right. He was totally right. And literally, I just sucked it up. And I would go every day to the library. I never really went to class. It's a funny story. People thought I dropped out of medical school because I was never in class. And I would show up to exams and they're like, oh, you're still here? And I'm like, yes. Because for me, I'm a better learner when I'm on my own. So you have to know your learning style. If you're somebody who gets distracted, big classrooms are not for me, because I would just like start focusing on how somebody was speaking instead of listening to what they're saying. And so the analogy of med school is the first year they put the umbrella up your ass. And it's true. That got shoved. The second year they open it and it's painful. The second year of med school is extremely painful because there is information that they're throwing at you left, right, and center. Literally, you have to dodge the information because you're going to get smacked. The third year, they close the umbrella. And then the fourth year, they take it out. And that was the best analogy of the 4 years of medical school. And it's a horribly crass analogy, but it is the truth. It is the total truth. And basically, so after second year of med school, I think I turned 21. And I was like, or 22, I don't even remember. I was at a school where there was not the best track record for people getting into dermatology. There was no dermatology residency program, and usually that's a big thing in order to get into derm. So FYI, I heard on The Bachelor, someone was like, oh, you're just a dermatologist. Dermatology is really hard to get into. There's no dermatology school, okay? I get that asked a lot. It doesn't exist, okay? You have to go to medical school first. And dermatology is one of the top specialties that are really hard to get into: dermatology, anesthesiology, radiology, ophthalmology, all the ologies. No, I'm kidding. Plastic surgery. Those are like harder fields to get. Okay, because there are limited spaces. They're more competitive. Okay, so I was like, and my brother-in-law is actually was very influential in this. He's like, Shireen, just go do research. And I was like, I don't want to. I want to go just finish. Da, 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 I just want to be done. He's like, you're so young. Stop looking at life as like being done. Just like enjoy and go do research and go meet people and just learn and just do, And so, fine. I started emailing. I started meeting random people. I remember I came to New York. I met somebody like a Einstein. I went to NYU. I met somebody there. I was like, what the hell is lupus? Somebody was doing research in lupus. And then I came across Dr. Kavadar at Harvard, at Connected Health, and he was doing something called telemedicine, which I was really into, reaching, which is actually kind of ironic. I just thought of this now because it was reaching people from afar and treating them from afar, which is so weird because this is what I'm doing now through Instagram. And so, oh my God, I never thought of that. And so I ended up doing my research in connected health and teledermatology. And basically what I focused on was with people with psoriasis and the mental impact of psoriasis, and how online support groups at the time, because we had no iPhones, we had no iPods, we didn't have any of this, can actually help the overall outcome of their disease burden. And so that's what I focused my research on support groups, online networking, how like the internet can actually help people, connect them to providers, etc. Which is so weird. I did not think about that until now. And that was the best year of my life. It was also one of the toughest years because at the time I was literally living at one point off of the money that I was making, which was like, I think $200 a week in Boston, which was crazy. So anyway, I did that for a while. I did that for a year and I loved it. And I met amazing people. And I actually reconnected with one of the residents who's now a dermatologist on Instagram, Dr. Pepri Sakar. I don't know if I said your name wrong, but which is really funny. Anyway, so that happened. And then I came back to GW. And the third and fourth year of medical school is then working in a hospital where you rotate through all the different fields. So OBGYN, we delivered babies, pediatrics, we took care of kids, surgery, we were like doing surgery at 3 a.m. for appendicitis, internal medicine, you name it, okay? We were doing all of the different rotations. And then end of third year, you start applying to residency and you start going to programs. And I applied to every single derm program in the US because I was like, I am not taking chances and I'm just gonna, I don't care how much this costs because it costs a lot of money. I'm just gonna send every penny I have to every single dermatology residency program. So I think it was like 100 and something programs at the time, which was like 2007 or something like that, 2008. So we ended up applying to dermatology, myself and I. And I remember it like yesterday. So when you apply to dermatology, I'm not a type A. I'm a type A at work, but I'm not a type A at home. When you apply to dermatology, this is how it works. You have to do 1 year of something called intern year, which is internal medicine, surgery, whatever, and then 3 years of dermatology. So I didn't put any importance on the intern year because I was like, F it, I'm going to get into intern year. I don't care, right? I don't care where I go. I just care about derm. I bombed those interviews, okay, because I just didn't care. Long story, I was in Boston bombing one of my intern year interviews, and I realized the only program I had not heard back from for my dermatology, was Tufts. And it was December 18th, the day before like the end of whatever, they were going to give you the last interviews. And I remember I was staying at my friend's house and I was like, I haven't heard, there's only one program I haven't heard from, Tufts. And I have all of these other programs I've heard from. Some were like 90% were like rejects, 10% were interviews. So I had like 10 or 12 interviews. And I remember being like, why didn't I hear from Tufts? You know what? You actually live down the road. I'm going to go to the hospital and find out what happened. So I got in the cab. I went to Tufts. I show up. I asked them where the department was. They tell me I was in the wrong area. I had to take another cab, go to the area where the dermatology department was. I get there. And Andrew was the guy who was standing at the receptionist. And I was like, hi, He's like, hello. I was like, hi, my name is Shireen Idris. I'm a medical student at GW. I'm applying for dermatology and I have not heard back from this program. And he looks at me like this and he's like, what? And I was like, my name is Shireen Idris. Da, 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 da. And he goes, hold on. So he runs back. He's so funny. I love that guy. And he comes back and he's like, oh my God. I was like, what? He's like, we sent you an invite, but I didn't realize it got bounced back and it's in my spam. And I was like, what are you talking about? And so then the program director comes out and he was like, we invited you for an interview and the deadline is today at 5 p.m., but you never responded. And I looked at them because I was literally going to be between Oklahoma City or Buffalo or wherever. And I was just like, I'll take it. I'll take the interview. I will take the interview right here, right now. And they're like, no, it's not now. It's like in 3 weeks in January. Literally, that is how I found out I got the Tufts interview. And this is when I tell people, get your ass off your fucking couch and go after what you want, because you never know. You never know. You never know. I don't know if Mercury was in retrograde. Actually, I should look it up. Because it was literally, I was sitting there with my friend Shadia. She was sitting there and I was like, I'm just going to go find out. It's let them say no to me in person. What do I care? I've been rejected by 90 other programs. And that is literally how I found out. So needless to say, I ended up going to that interview. I don't know if they really wanted me or not, because they're like, maybe she's psychotic. She showed up. I ended up matching there. Matching is the process of the residency whole scenario. You don't pick where you end up going. You basically interview in all these places. You apply to all these places. Then you interview. After interviewing, you as a medical student rank your programs 1 through blah, 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 blah. Most people apply to like 4 or 5. I had 1 through whatever that I was ranking, hoping to get accepted. The residency programs then rank you, and then you match. God knows how you match. To this day, I still don't understand the matching process. It's like some weird algorithm that some dude in a basement figured out that makes no sense to anybody, but you just basically believe it for face value and you just live it and you do it and you're like, okay, this is what it is. So I ended up matching at Tufts, which was my first choice, but I think I was their last choice, but I didn't care. I took it. I was so happy. And I ended up matching for my first year at my last choice, my intern year, which I honestly didn't even remember what it was when I matched. I had to go and like Google it really quick because my mom was like, where is that? I'm like, I have no idea, because I honestly bombed those interviews. And I ended up doing my intern year in a prison hospital, and that's why I did not remember it. I think I had like blocked it out. Whatever. So that's how the whole process was for me for getting into dermatology. So my take home is the following. If you want to do something, and if you really want something, get your ass off the couch. No one's going to give you anything. It's not going to be handed. It's a lot of hard work. It may look easy because of Instagram. It may look easy because people want to show the nicest parts of their life on social media, but it's hard, okay? And the prison hospital was intense, and we'll talk about that in a second. But there was a lot of hoops that I've gone through, and it's not just me. I'm not special. Every other person who's applied to dermatology has gone through something similar. Maybe not prison, but they've gone through something similar. I will just say that the best things that have ever happened to me have been kind of sporadic, but I don't think that they happen just haphazardly. I think it's literally like 30-40% effort and like the 50-60% luck if you want. But how do you explain going to Tufts and finding out about your interview like that? To this day, I cannot explain it. So then I go for my first year, which was at a prison hospital in Boston. And listen, all I've learned is that you can never judge a book by their cover. People who appear normal are effing crazy. And people who appear effing crazy can be the sweetest. And you have no idea. It was very hard, though. It was very hard living alone in a city where I knew no one. I was dating somebody at the time who was a sweetheart, but it just didn't work out between us. And he was very patient because I was really going through a hard time working in this prison hospital, because first of all, it wasn't pretty to be in. It wasn't pretty mentally. There was like a lot of like, what's wrong? This person doesn't look like they did anything wrong. And then you find out what they did because you don't know how you find out what they did. And you're like, oh my God. And then this person seems like they're the nicest person or the meanest person. And then you find that they're actually, oh my God, why are they actually here? They're so silly that this person is actually here. So you really have no idea. Um, Prison was intense. It was really intense. I added 15 pounds my intern year in prison because I used to wear triple XL scrubs, and I never wanted anybody, any inmate, to kind of see, like, I didn't want them to like pay attention, and so up to anything. So I'd be wearing like super baggy clothes, and let's just say at 2 a.m. when you hear like, you know, people who are like shackled walking down the hall or whatever it is, you just start eating like Snickers bars because you're like FML. It was seriously FML, but it's okay. It was a year and it passed. And the irony is, I would tell my dad, you told me I was in prison for 2 years. I ended up being in prison for like 5 because I literally ended up going to prison. So I didn't get incarcerated, but I took care of inmates. Anyway, so that was that. And then I also became a very skeptical human being because a lot of times they would ask for pain medication when they didn't need it. Like I remember one guy was actively seizing, supposedly, and then he woke up like mid seizure, was like, "Give me Dilaudid," and I was like, "What?" And Dilaudid is a really bad painkiller, but he knew what he wanted mid seizure, and then he went back to seizing. So then you end up really becoming skeptical of people. And so I remember when I started at Tufts, some patient was like, "My hands are hurting me." I'm like, "Are they really hurting you?" And then the attending was like, "Shireen, you can't say that to a patient." And so anyway, it was definitely an experience. So anyway, I ended up then doing 3 years of dermatology residency at Tufts, and then I graduated, and I met my husband during my second year as a resident. He was living in London. That's a whole nother story for another day. But we ended up dating long distance, getting engaged long distance, getting married long distance, doing Boston, New York long distance. And then finally I was like, fine, I'll move to the same city as you. And after being married for over a year. So are your hands really hurting? I don't know. Maybe. I have no idea. So anyway, that is the story. That is the more personal thing. I decided just to kind of combine them because whatever, my husband's still not here. And I hope I've shed some light. There is no such thing as dermatology school. There is no such thing as an easy way in. Everything is hard work. It's not what you want to hear. He moved from London to New York because after studying for 13 years and actually going to jail, I figured I'm not going to give up my medical degree and not work at all. So I basically made him move here. He was really lucky that his company was able to transfer him to New York, to the US, because I wanted to at least practice medicine. And I think in the UK, they make it very difficult for like foreign grads to actually practice. I still haven't quite figured it out. And they have to redo their whole training through the NHS. And it's not something I wanted to do after having gone through all of that. And so that's how we ended up in New York City. I was going to move back to DC before I met him. But anyway, that's how we ended up in New York. So he is not a doctor. He faints at the sight of blood. He literally, if I touch his neck and his carotid, he passes out because he thinks I'm trying to do like a carotid massage and I'm trying to make him pass out, but I'm not. Anyway, so I did not do fellowship after residency. So fine, we'll quickly talk about that. I graduated. I moved to New York. Okay. I'm not type A, and this is things kind of happen, and I think, again, there's a way you attract things in life. So I ended up interviewing with this, I'm not going to name any names, but I interviewed with this person who gave me a sandwich. Probably the first interview I had. It was the only interview, actually. I was visiting my husband on a weekend. The guy gave me a sandwich. I was like, he seems really nice. I'm going to take that sandwich. And I took the job. And I was like, I'm taking the job because there's no contract. I don't need to sign anything. I'm just going to go work for this dude. And I sincerely mean this when I say this. I did not care how much I made because I'm still in debt, but I was so in debt. I was like, who cares what I make at this point? I just want to get my feet wet. I just want to get to know the landscape. I just want to understand New York City. I don't know, the left person from the right person. I don't know who's who. I don't know a single dermatologist in New York City. So I'm just going to come in and just understand that, just see what New York is about. So I took the job and I didn't have to sign a contract. So I was like, perfect. I don't need to be tied to anything. But I gave him my word. I said, I'll work for you for a year. So I ended up going to this guy's office on the first day. And downstairs was a driver. who was like, okay, great, you're here. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, he's like, we're going to take you to the other office. I'm like, the other office? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. The other office was like 45 minutes away, an hour and a half actually, out in Bethpage, Long Island. And every day I would reverse commute to Bethpage, Long Island from New York City. And I lived 2 blocks away from the New York City office. And I remember on day 4, I told my husband, I'm like, I want to quit. Like, I get car sick. I'm grateful he sends me with the car of the office, but I get car sick. I'd rather take the Long Island Railroad because I really want to throw up by the time I get to work. It's an hour and a half. And he was like, Shireen, you gave him your word. You're not doing that. And I'm like, oh, fuck it. So I basically did it for a year. And I remember going every day wanting to throw up, showing up, seeing patients. It was really horrible. Although the patients were so nice and the people were so nice, it was just like the motion sickness was really horrible. And I remember one day I was in clinic and this woman who was like a drug rep shows up and she's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, why aren't you working in New York City? I'm like, I live in New York City. She's like, you do? And I'm like, yeah. And then she was like, oh, why are you here? Why are you commuting so far? And I was like, I don't, whatever, and so I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So she basically then connected me to a bunch of other people who then asked for my CV, and then they started distributing my CV. And then I landed at this other office who was very interested in hiring. And that's how I ended up in my second job and learning through that person a lot of cosmetics. And that's a story for another day, which I will really not talk about today. But yeah, so that's how that happened. And I'm very grateful I am where I am today. Not because I work there, but I really do. I'm happy where I am at the office that I've joined. And yeah. So that lady was so nice. She was really very nice. And I will say this, that I think, you just don't always be open to people if they're willing to help, and, always help other people, because karma does come back. It really comes back. So just be a good person in this world. And no, I would not change anything. I would not change anything. I would not change pushing back getting pregnant. I would not change having to go through IVF. I would not change working in the prison hospital, because I think I learned so much about myself. I would not change reverse commuting an hour and a half and wanting to throw up every day. I would probably want to take a Zofran, or at least get a prescription at this point. But I would not change it, because I really do think that everything, if you take a step back and look back at your life, you realize that everything happens for a reason, and you can connect the dots in retrospect. And I think that everything has happened for a reason, and I'm just grateful for, whatever it is. Is my life perfect? No. Is my life exhausting? Yes. Is New York City hard to live in? Yes. Is there balance? And I hate that. Work-life balance? No, because balance does not exist. I think one days you're a better mom, some days you're a better doctor, other, I don't think there is a balance on a day-to-day basis. And that's why I hate, how do you have it all? You never have it all. There are days where I'm a terrible mom because I've seen my daughter for 30 minutes. And there are days where I'm super mom, but I'm the worst at answering emails for work. And so I think it is hard, but I still wouldn't have it any other way. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. I am very scared to end it, only because I do not know how I'm going to save it. Although I think I figured that part out. So I will try to save this. And then I will try to figure out if anybody can DM me how to save it as maybe IGTV. Is that that's probably what it is, because it's probably longer than 15 seconds. And this is why I could not do this in stories. I will save it as an IGTV. So I hope you guys learned something or enjoyed this. Or, if you want to give up, don't give up, whether it's getting pregnant or going to school or whatever it is. And he's still not home. So I'm going to call him to find out where he is. Good night.